Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of my Overcoming series. I hope you enjoyed last episode, which was on overcoming perfectionism. But today's episode, I want to talk about trauma bonds, overcoming trauma bonds, and being in a place where you feel strong and ready and emotionally healthy to receive love, healthy love that is not a trauma bond. So I actually have a video discussing trauma bonds where I talk about my experience of trauma bonds and I go deep into what a trauma bond looks like, what it is, the signs. And so when I made that video, I was in a place where I had recently left a trauma bond, but now I'm in a space where I am away from that trauma bond. I have been for years. I'm emotionally detached, but it didn't come without its own kind of struggles. I had to be very intentional about my kind of distance from that trauma bond on an emotional level. For anyone who doesn't know, what a trauma bond is a strong emotional connection with someone, and you're in a relationship with them or a bond with them in which you feel like you cannot leave. You feel tied to that person on an emotional level. It's very emotionally intense, it's emotionally driven. That person does certain tactics where such as giving you love and then withdrawing, doing things that feed that need, fill that void that you have inside you, that makes you feel like you need to cling onto that person or hold onto that person and keep the relationship going, even though that person is emotionally harming you and is no good for you. Those relationships are very toxic, and they're usually formed by some sort of trauma or unhealed wounds that you may have that's causing you to kind of connect and cling onto that person. They might reflect some trauma that you experienced when you was growing up. They might reflect someone in your life such as like your parents or whoever, and you feel kind of attached to them, tied to them, and you just find it difficult to leave. I had my fair share of a trauma bond, and honey, it took me a while to kind of detach from this person on an emotional level. The difficult thing about trauma bonds is even when you physically detach from that person, the emotional ties are still there. The impact that trauma bonds can have on you emotionally, even a year after leaving that relationship, is intense, because you can still feel the effects and the impacts of that trauma bond and how you felt. You feel triggered, you feel like you don't trust yourself enough, you don't trust your decisions, you still feel emotionally invested in that relationship, still feel tied to that person. You seem like it feels like you can't fully shake that person off and the experiences that you have. And that's because trauma bonds are just so emotionally intense, and you just have this, you feel like you have this connection to this person even when they're not around you physically. And so that's what I had. I still felt emotionally tired even though I was physically and completely done, like out of sight, out of mind. But when it comes to trauma bonds, it feels like even though they're out of sight, they're not out of your mind. When you finally left a trauma bond and there's no going back, you're now in a place where you can actually look forward to having healthy experiences. You kind of know the signs of a trauma bond, and you know the ways in which you kind of connected with someone and how that trauma bond may have formed. So once you have that awareness, you can now navigate situations, experiences with other people, other relationships, other bonds and connections in a healthy way, with a mindset where it's like you don't want to have a similar experience of what you had. You don't want to form this based on trauma. You want to form this in a healthy, meaningful way, and you're able to look out for signs of love bombing, someone doing too much too soon, not giving you the agency to kind of decide how you want the relationship to go, someone moving too quickly, different things, hot and cold behavior, certain signs. You're gonna be like, whoa, like let's reel it in. We're not gonna we're not doing this anymore. You're gonna have that sort of awareness. And that's a great thing about going through a difficult relationship, because whilst it's sad, whilst it's painful, and whilst it's difficult, once you've left that relationship, you can come out of it with a renewed sense of self. It's about giving yourself the ability to understand what attracted you to that person in the first place. What was it within you that felt attached to someone who was harmful for you? We don't go into relationships with the belief that someone's going to harm us. We don't go into relationships thinking that that person's going to be a mess and that the relationship's not going to work out. A lot of times we get into relationships with the hope and belief that this is going to be long term, they're going to be good for me, and you're going to be good for them. When it comes to trauma bonds, whilst there may be signs in the beginning that we might be missing or just not taking heed to and paying attention to, that person isn't going to show you off the bat that they cannot love you or can't do right by you. From the jump, that person is going to show you that they care for you and that they want the best for you. They're going to do certain things such as love bombing that makes you feel like, oh, this person is actually invested in me. This person wants to get to know me. They want to be with me. I'm the person for them. They're going to do those things, right? So you can't blame yourself for the fact that you had hopes in this person and it didn't work out, or it just ended up being a disaster. You can't blame yourself for that. So when it comes to overcoming trauma bonds, it's accepting the role that you played. It's accepting how you kind of may have ignored the red flags or didn't take heed to those red flags. But it's understanding and giving yourself grace for the fact that that person showed you something different. That person made you feel like you could trust them, that you could believe in them, that you could believe that they're good for you. Sometimes we get into these trauma bonds or we get into these sorts of intense or toxic relationships because they're there to teach us a lesson or to teach us more about ourselves. They're there to teach us about what's going on within ourselves that allow us to kind of not feel strong or assertive or emotionally healthy enough to decide that this isn't for me. Because if you were in a space where you felt like emotionally healthy, where you dealt with some of the emotional wounds that you have, where you kind of begin healing your inner child, then you most likely wouldn't get into these relationships. You most likely wouldn't have gotten into a trauma bond with someone. When you kind of reframe the experience and reframe what happened, you can give yourself the opportunity to learn something from that situation. And that's what I had to do, because trauma bonds reveal things to you. So for me, it revealed my strong father issues, daddy issues, whatever you want to call them. It revealed that to me, and it's reminded me of things that I didn't deal with and I hadn't actually began healing. Now, sometimes healing is one of those things where you might not feel fully healed from something, and that's okay. But when you begin healing something, it creates that awareness, that conscious awareness in your mind to now act with intention, to now move and navigate life intentionally and with awareness of your behaviors, your thoughts, and how your thoughts and feelings are impacting and driving your behaviors. So when I kind of started thinking, you know what, I have a very toxic and unhealthy relationship with my dad. This person is reminding me of some of the things that I've experienced with my dad. This person is speaking to me in the ways that my dad has spoken to me. This person is has been negative towards me in that way. It's similarities to the wounds that I had. There's similarities to the things that I haven't yet gotten over. That was for me to kind of like, okay, this is what I'm learning from this situation. This is what I'm sensing is happening here. And it was easy for me to beat myself up, which I did. I beat myself up multiple times about this situation. But then I thought to myself, I'm wounded. I have things that I've got going on within myself that is causing me to be in this situation, or that caused me to be in that situation. So once I left that situation and I've started to overcome it, it was through me identifying certain aspects of or similarities of maybe trauma that I had or experiences that I had with my dad that was similar to this person. This person felt like home in a way. It was like a toxic safety. It was like a toxic safety sort of feeling, to the point where when we had disagreements or when this person was withdrawing from me, I needed to get that love. I needed to get that experience because I had a void that needed to be filled. And so with that being said, I think one of the main ways to overcome trauma bonds is by kind of learning how to fill those voids outside of anyone else. Learning how to fill the void within yourself by yourself, or the help of other people such as a therapist or loving friends or family members in your life. But it's learning how to fill that void within yourself so that you're not actively seeking or unconsciously seeking someone to fill that void for you. Because that's how we land ourselves in trauma bonds, we land ourselves in toxic relationships, or we end up being codependent on unhealthy people in our lives because they are unfortunately filling the void within us that we now need to fill ourselves. And so being able to fill those voids yourself means sometimes getting to the root cause of why that emptiness is there, why you feel the way that you do. Because when you get to the root cause of that emptiness, you can begin pouring into yourself and filling yourself up and filling that cup and that emptiness with life, with hope, with love, with self-love, with self-respect, with self-worth and self-esteem. And that could look like going to therapy, getting help. That could look like surrounding yourself with people that you know have good intentions for you. Healing and overcoming doesn't always have to be like drastic actions and big steps. It can be small steps such as giving yourself time. It could be small steps like just being compassionate with yourself. It could be steps such as allowing yourself to go through the emotions and to experience what you feel. So I felt anger, I felt sadness. You might also find that you might have feelings such as wanting that person again or feeling sorry for that person. And that's okay. Whatever emotion comes up for you is okay. Any emotion that you experience is a healthy emotion. It means that you have feelings. It means that you have a process, and it means that you need to just go through that process in a healthy way. So it means being able to sit with your emotions at all times, even when you feel like you've overcame like a negative experience, a trauma bond, or an unhealthy relationship. Even when that separation has occurred, it's still going through the emotions, because feelings can still come up. You could easily feel a type of way a year later about what happened, and that's okay. I feel like it's all part of the process. But overcoming a trauma bond is finally being in a place where you feel peace with yourself about that situation, about that relationship. You feel like you've learned your lessons, you've learned more about yourself, you've learned more about what needed healing within you, you've learned more about how you may have contributed to your situation. And I think that's a big key, because it's like, we can pass the blame on these people, because yes, they deserve to be blamed for how they treated you, but the reality is we also have to be able to identify where we went wrong. We have to be able to identify where we kind of fed this sort of need, or where we contribute to this undesirable situation, the things that we did that might have caused us to maintain this unhealthy cycle with someone. And there's a lot of things that I know that I did. When you continue to keep up something that's harming you, you do have to take accountability for the fact that you're maintaining this situation, that you're maintaining this negative experience with someone, this negative bond with someone. So overcoming something is being able to take accountability for yourself, because it's also that accountability that's going to be your driving force for your actions going forward, because you're going to be like, I can identify something, and I'm going to take accountability for what I've done and the role that I played, or the part that I played, or the things that I didn't do that I should have done. And it enables you to navigate life with a healthy mindset of like, I'm going to take responsibility for myself and my actions going forward. I'm going to take responsibility and not give that responsibility to other people. Because when we are unable to take accountability for ourselves or our process, what happens is that people will come into our life trying to control us, or to be the driver of our own life. That should never be the case. You should always be able to maintain control and have a level of responsibility within your own life, because you're your own person. And so when you're able to take accountability for the things that you've done in your own actions, then you're able to have control of your own life and yourself and the experiences that you may have. And overcoming a trauma bond, it doesn't mean that you'll never have any negative experiences again. But what it means is that you'll be in an emotionally healthy place, a healthy mindset, a mindset that is based on self-love, self-respect, self-compassion, self-honesty, self-accountability, that enables you to now move forward in your life, doing things that represent who you are, making choices and decisions that represent your authentic self, that factor in what you want and what you desire out of life, what you deserve out of life. Because that's what it is really. When you feel like you're deserving of something good, something healthy, your actions will align with that. Your actions will always align with that. When you love yourself enough, when you have that accountability for yourself, when you are honest with yourself, you can be like, you do not get to come into my life and rule anything. I take ownership of myself and my life. And we are two people that are going to come together and create something healthy, if that's what you want, if that's the intentions here. Anything outside that, I don't want it. I don't want it. And that's basically how it is for me, because it's like, when I started to overcome my trauma, when I started to assess my experiences, when I started to think about how I was contributing to my negative experiences, I was able to see things differently. I was able to see things from a healthier lens, in which when someone came into my life that didn't make no sense or did not align with who I am, with my values, how I now viewed myself, didn't align with the work I've now done for myself and put in for myself, I was able to be assertive enough and say, you're not the one for me. This doesn't align with who I am. This doesn't align with where I'm trying to go. I don't want this. And I don't want a repeat of experiences that I've had in the past. I don't want another trauma bond. I don't want another negative experience. I want something healthy and loving and fulfilling and satisfying for me and also for you. You want someone to experience a healthy version of you, When someone comes into your life and they're trying to love you right and they're trying to love you in healthy ways and they're good for you, you also want to be able to reciprocate that. But when you are, I guess, navigating from an emotionally wounded place, from a scarred place of like anger, hurt, and pain, that can also cause you to kind of mistrust people that you actually should trust, to not want to reciprocate giving healthy love and a healthy experience to someone who deserves it. Someone who's far removed from any trauma bond or any person that wasn't good to you. So that's why it's also important as well, because you also want to be able to give love to someone else in a healthy way, as well as the love that you give to yourself. You want to give yourself that healthy love, but you also want to give that to someone else as well, especially if you are someone who desires a relationship, who desires healthy, loving connections. And speaking for myself as well, I think it's people who do get into trauma bonds or people who have had experiences of trauma bonds who usually do want these loving connections, who want something strong, who are very emotionally intense people, because I know that I'm someone who is emotionally driven at times. I'm someone who's emotionally intense, who wants a loving, strong, emotional and spiritual connection with someone. And sometimes we have trauma bonds where we're looking for that and we're experiencing the emotional intensity, but we're not in healthy ways. So you can experience emotional intensity, but you can experience it in a healthy way if you choose to, and if you're willing to overcome, the difficulties of the trauma or the impacts of a trauma bond. So dig deep, look into yourself, do journal prompts, go to a therapist, talk to yourself, ask for guidance, ask for understanding from God, whoever you believe in. Give yourself time to assess who you are, what you want, what you desire out of life, out of love in particular. What do you want out of love? What's the experiences that you want from love? Focus your attention on what you want to experience as opposed to what you don't want to experience out of love. What do you want in a partner? And you don't have to even make long lists. You can just simply say, I want a loving, healthy connection with someone in which we grow spiritually, emotionally, in which I feel safe and comfortable within their presence. You can simply make statements like that, write it down and read it on a daily basis. It creates that energy and that environment where you can start to kind of navigate in a way where it's like, this is what I want and this is what I'm looking for. And when you have that awareness and that vision for yourself and your life and love, then you're able to kind of get the love that you want at some point. And it's about being patient with yourself, with your process, and with the process of finding healthy love and that sort of connection, and being patient with that and not trying to rush or force it into existence. Because one thing you'll notice about trauma bonds is that they are very rushed. That process of connecting with them is rushed. It's forced into something. Whether or not you do connect with them, it's still rushed and it's still forced, because that's the nature of trauma bonds, right? So with all things, practice patience, especially when it comes to love. Love doesn't have to be forced. Love can take its natural course and its natural time, and connections can blossom and they can be healthy and they can get to a healthy place, and the connection can heighten and things can be amazing and beautiful, but you have to give yourself that time and that patience to get there. Definitely give yourself that time to understand who you are and what you want. That self-understanding is so important, to know what you want and to know what you desire and to know what you need and what you like out of life, and to also know what you value as well. That gives you that foundation as to how you want to live your life, because you have a set of values, you have a vision, you have a set of beliefs that are your driving force and drive your decisions as well, especially when it comes to love. Because when you have certain values for yourself, then that will also seep into your love life, into your relationships. Because it's important to be with someone who aligns with your values, whose values aligns with yours. And that's really important. So it's having that vision for your life, understanding who you are, loving on yourself, giving yourself that love that you desire from somebody else is so important. Especially when you have gone through a trauma bond, because it's kind of like sometimes trauma bonds can make you feel like you're undeserving of healthy love, especially when you've dealt with bottom barrel situations, when you've accepted things that are so undesirable, that are not cute, that are very ugly. So when you've accepted these negative things, sometimes it can make you feel like you're not deserving of healthy love. But it's not the case. You are still deserving of a healthy, loving experience, even though you never had that with someone else, or even though you put up with something from someone else. You still deserve something positive, something healthy, something loving, something different. Being able to remind yourself that, but truly believe it as well. Because it's one thing saying that, oh, I'm deserving, but it's another thing to truly believe that you're deserving. And that's where self-forgiveness comes from. You have to be able to forgive yourself for the things that you put up with in the past that were undesirable, for some of the experiences that you had that you may have contributed to. You have to be able to forgive yourself. That's so important. And it's a difficult thing, because I know for me, I lacked a lot of self-compassion when it came to, you know, that process of overcoming the trauma bond. I had to really try to be compassionate with myself. There's a lot of times where I beat myself up for the fact that I just didn't do right by myself, where I just thought to myself, why did I put myself in such a sad situation? Why would I put myself in harm's way like this, where I did things that went against my values or what I believed my values to be? I had to learn to practice self-compassion in order to forgive myself, to understand that I didn't know what I know now, to understand that I now know that it's a journey, it's a process, and that it has taken me time to get to where I am now emotionally. And I was younger then. So as we grow and we're learning, as we're getting older, we're getting wiser. Because of that, we have to give ourselves that compassion and that understanding that we didn't know what we know now back then. And that experience has now actually led us to this place of enlightenment, where we understand ourselves better, we understand our wants, our needs better, we understand why we did what we did, so we can do something different going forward. And that's the point. That's the point of life. It's the point of life is to grow, to evolve, to learn more about yourself, to get wiser, to get older, because that's what comes with age, you know, well, for some people. But that's the point, you know, and we have to be intentional with our actions when it comes to overcoming difficult experiences, when it comes to overcoming trauma bonds, when it comes to overcoming negative and toxic relationships, and to understand that we are deserving of loving experiences, to understand that we deserve better. It's okay to have gone through these things, but we're now going to evolve and do better and be better and have better and loving experiences. And as someone who identifies the fact that I do want love and I want a loving and healthy relationship, I have to now act in loving ways towards myself and to other people, despite the things that I've gone through, despite some of the traumatic experiences and relationships that I've had. I'm not going to give up on having a loving connection with someone else, because if that's what I want, that's what I'm going to get. But I have to act in loving ways. I have to be open to receive it and to also give it. But together we will overcome trauma bonds. And please do listen to my old video. It was probably 2 years ago now. My old video on trauma bonds, because that will go deep into a trauma bond and my experience. That will be beneficial if you are in a trauma bond and you are finding it difficult to leave, because I understand. I know the difficulty. But please do watch that video and give yourself grace. Don't worry if it's years have passed or 1 year and you're still feeling the impact of that relationship or of a toxic relationship. That's normal. It's okay. You're a human being. You have your own process, and sometimes you have to just give yourself that time. But you will overcome it, and you are overcoming, and that's what's important. You don't have to be there yet. You don't have to be at the end point yet. As long as you are overcoming, you're starting the process of healing and overcoming something. That's the first step. Thank you for listening to this video, and I will see you in my next overcoming episode.